infinite banking goes far beyond just the transfer of financial assets. It really allows families to pass down your values, the discipline for generations to come. And what is important about how IBC can contribute to successful succession planning is that avoiding that emotional and financial strain, especially during probate. Practicing the IBC lifestyle can really ease the burden of probate and that emotional stress, and can really help to prevent a lot of conflict among the people who are left behind.
Welcome to the WinEH podcast. This show is focused on empowering ranchers. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just getting started, we'll guide you on how to use the infinite banking concept as an alternative way to finance your operations. It's a better way to think about money. Join us as we discuss planning for the future, attracting the next generation, and the art of keeping more money within the family. Here's your hosts, Winnie and Lacey.
All right. So glad that you're choosing to lean into our next conversation with us today. Lacey, we are going over what specific topic are we going into?
We're going to talk about how IBC or infinite banking organically solves for succession planning or estate planning at the same time. So it's a topic that is interesting and something that comes up so often when we're speaking with farmers and ranchers is that estate planning. It's an elephant in the room.
It really is. I mean, I think that there's so many different seasons in which anyone in the agricultural industry is in, whether been off your farm or ranch for many, many years and you've had a job and now something is pulling you back to be a part of the family farm. And then it's how to get integrated. Where there's times where it's like, maybe you've grown up in the city all this time and you want to now, your next desire and passion is to live on the land, and it's how to go about doing that. So you're starting from scratch, or yourself, Lacey, you and Reed, you guys are 5 or 6 generations in, and it's about how do you keep it? I mean, there's so many different spaces to come in regards to how do you estate plan successfully?
Yeah. And I think a conversation that we often have is mom and dad are getting we want to have this conversation before mom and dad are to that age where they're thinking about stepping down and lessening their roles and somebody else coming in, because it just is so much easier. The sooner you have the conversation, the easier it is to get that plan put in place. In my mind, we deal a lot with maybe there's 4 or 5 kids. So what do we do with 4 or 5 kids? There's not very many farms and ranches that can support 4 or 5 families. And so what do we do? Who's coming back is number one question. Who's going to be involved in the operation, working the land, earning a living from the farm or the ranch, and who is not? And what are we going to leave behind for those who are not coming onto the farm or the ranch to work and to carry it on? And so that's where the water gets muddied sometimes. It's like, we have this ranch, maybe one kid's coming back, or maybe we don't know who's coming back. Maybe at this point, everybody's doing their own thing and we don't even know who's going to come back, but we need to figure out some sort of plan. And so implementing infinite banking, it doesn't just solve for making your dollar do more than one job or getting the banks out of your life. It can actually organically at the same time solve for that estate planning that not a lot of people want to talk about.
Yeah, or can actually execute effectively, because unfortunately, when you set it aside for so many years, you can really lose out on so many more different options that you can really take, because it just gets so costly. I think, unfortunately, when you leave it till it's far too late, it's harder and harder for you to say yes to the options you have left that, a lot of traditional financial advisors sort of put before you in order to really successfully do that estate planning, because it just costs so much more. And there's there's a very small margin of people who are in the position to spend those extra dollars to make effective plans come into play. So I would say that the sooner that you can really get going, because it really is about answering a question over and over again, like, what do you want to see happen?
Yeah.
Right? And you have to allow that thought process to be fleshed out. Like what your immediate answer is probably like your version one first answer. And then, you ask that question again, you're gonna really start the snowball of what you want to have happen for your family. It needs time to like come out effectively.
Yeah, I agree, because, you might ask yourself that question as the owner of the operation, like, what do I want to happen when I want to step away and retire from the daily operation, or when I pass away? What do I want to happen? And that might look a certain way when we begin talking, and then by the end of our talks and when we get something put in place for you, that might look different. And I think another huge thing for anybody to consider when we start talking about estate planning is fair is not always equal. And so in a dollar and cents wise, or even land base wise, fair is not always equal, but there's ways that everybody can get what they deserve or what they're entitled to or what mom and dad want to happen. But it just may not look like dollars and cents wise equal, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done, because it absolutely can be done. And we've worked with several families who have come to us, okay, we need X amount of payout to leave to kids who aren't going to be on the farm. And after meetings and let's see what we can put together, we've solved that for them. And it's a very peaceful feeling to know that you've helped that family put that piece in place for when mom and dad are no longer here.
Yeah. Like right beside us, it just happens. I'm not sure how it looks like on your end, but it seems to be on the same side of our heads.
Yeah.
The infinite banking concept book, Becoming Your Own Banker. I mean, coming right back down to the subject of, how can the infinite banking concept really help to contribute to a mature, successful estate planning, plan for you. It's like one of the attributes of it, it's a lot more flexible, and it's found to be one of the most tax advantaged and flexible ways to engage with the estate planning process, because it's a much more liquid tool. And if you go to any like solid accountant that really understands permanent life insurance and how it works, just how it works tax wise, they're gonna be able to confirm for you that the way that we tend to set up our contracts for our clients is smart.
Yeah, I would say, because like we said before, there's been several families that come to us, hey, maybe we can make our dollar do more than one job, or, maybe we can pay less interest to the bank. And at the end of that conversation, we end up estate planning as well with the same dollar. So that's another thing like to take note of. We end up paying less interest to the banks, getting enough snakes and dragons out of our lives, making our money do more than one job. We have access to our money while we're living. And with that same dollar, we're estate planning. So it's like, 4-in-1 deal. I don't know what you want to call it, but it just makes sense to me. And I know that we do it every day, and this is what we are so passionate about, but it just works and it makes sense. And so it might change everything for you from the standpoint of succession planning, or how are we going to phase mom and dad out of the operation? And they still, like, mom and dad still need money. They still need a place to live. How are we going to phase them out, but bring the next generation in, and just everybody's going to be taken care of? And we're going to keep that place intact. Like, we're not going to have to sell off a piece or divvy it up. Yeah, it just makes sense to me.
Absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense to you too, because you've also taken the time to really learn, a lot of the ins and outs. Like, you've read the book, and then plus, just spending a lot of time learning, growing, doing what we're doing inside Rancher Way. So it, unlike a lot of traditional methods, which honestly can be cumbersome and restrictive, right? What Lacey was, imparting to us is that it's not just 4-in-1. Another way of really saying it, if that didn't make sense to me, another word comes into mind. It's like you can use the same dollar for multiple purposes, which is another way.
Yeah.
And like 4-in-1
Yeah.
is like the short version, which I really like as well. That makes total sense. But yeah, it totally allows, like, while you're doing the transition, whether it's like you're wanting to help, retire your parents, or or you retire yourself and you're wanting your kids to join the business, like, again, whatever stage you are, IBC really allows access to your liquidity when you need it most. It'll help to cover taxes. It really will help to, it will attribute and contribute to helping your family business run a lot more smoothly. Another thing that we have yet to really perhaps point out for all of our listeners out there is when you start practicing this particular lifestyle, the IBC financial lifestyle, it really helps to and can contribute to preserving family values and traditions. So when he was here, he was such a great living example about him practicing this financial lifestyle. It really allowed him to spend more time with his family and really carry on with the traditions that he really wanted to make sure to instill, like not just financially speaking, but spiritually speaking as well, right? And at the time, if we're in a place where we're constantly worried about money, how is it that you can really think beyond surviving, about being able to preserve those values and those traditions when you're constantly feeling like you need to chase the dollar, right?
I think too, I can't help but start to think about my own family and our own 3 kids. And our daughter recently had, like, it was Canadian Thanksgiving, so she had a turkey and she listed out things that she was thankful for. And one of those things, and it gets me all up in my feels, and she said she was thankful for my ranch. And it's like, yes, that's what ranching and farming families experience. Living that lifestyle, that piece of land, that is not just a piece of land or a house that we're going to flip and move to the next house. It's just like in your blood. And so we're here to show you a better way, show you how we can preserve that. Because like, even just reading that on her little turkey, like, she's 7 years old, I'm like, we have to do whatever we can to preserve this land for her, because she, at 7 years old, that's one of the 5 things she listed out she was thankful for. And I know I'm not the only parent that feels that way, and she's not the only little girl who feels that way about the family farm or ranch. And so it's like, we're here to just show you what we feel is a better way and give you that hope and that peace of like, yeah, mom and dad, let's transition you out and let's give you your wings to like do whatever it is you want to do in those retirement years, but yet know that the operation is carrying on to that next generation. And then, the grandkids and the great grandkids, like, it's all just like, even being on this land, and it often comes up in conversation about Grandma Lizzie came here on a train with her family. She was a widow with a young toddler, and what has been built from what she started, it's worth preserving, and it's worth just like taking a look at what is to offer inside, like that Farming Without the Bank or Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, because there's a way and it's right here. And I know it can be scary to kind of jump off into something new that you haven't heard of or you don't know anything about. I think it's worth it.
Definitely. And I love how you just shared all of your own personal stories there, Lacey, because again, infinite banking goes far beyond just like the transfer of financial assets. It really allows families such as yours to really pass down your values, the discipline, and for generations to come. That's what it will really help to contribute. And not to mention, which is like the third thing that was really on my mind about what is important about how IBC can contribute to successful succession planning, is that avoiding that emotional and financial strain, especially during probate here in Canada. Like, so Manitoba, not everyone can be Manitoba, where they have no probate fees, but trust me, like, it just so happens to be the cherry on the top where practicing the IBC lifestyle can really ease the burden of probate and reducing that emotional stress when someone graduates to heaven, and can really help to prevent a lot of conflict among the people who are left behind, because there will be much more liquid access to funds based on what we practice. Like estate distribution is solidly something that people should really think about and how we can help with that.
Yeah. And we encourage you to turn off everything that you've been told about insurance or insurance salesmen, and just open up your mind to something new, because you don't know where it's going to take you. It could be someplace amazing.
Yes, we are literally standing between you and a check that will arrive when you most need it, when everyone else will send you a bill.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So questions, comments, or feedback, we would love to hear. If there's something you want us to talk about, the topic you want us to address, please let us know at wecare@ranchyourway.com. Your first step to getting started is going on our website and ordering the book. So you have a little bit of time left to pre-order, and then, ranchyourway.com, grab the book bundle, because you're going to want to read both. Thanks, guys.
So glad you leaned in with us on the WinEH podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.